All right, so now we'll continue with chapter 5 titled Enlightenment. To realize I am that is to experience for yourself that what you truly are is awareness. You are that awareness in which everyone resides in, and that awareness which resides in everyone. To realize that I am that is what is meant by the term enlightenment. Imagine a painting of the universe in complete detail, including you, along with everyone else in existence. To realize I am that is to realize that what you truly are is not merely one of the objects in the painting, but the actual paint itself. Journal entry, August 20th, 2002. I can't begin to explain what has been happening today. This week, this month, this year, and actually the last few years. But as of today, approximately 7 o'clock a.m., I am fully realized. I realize that all of you are also realized, whether you know it or not. I recall my journal entry last year when I was playing with my guitar and something told me to look behind me. And when I did, I saw in 360 degrees. Seeing in 360 degrees revealed the void behind me and the everyday world in front of me, appearing on a flat screen. I say it appeared flat, but my memory also tells me that it was also a hologram, thereby giving it the appearance of depth. Okay. After that, I was so fanatical that I wanted to inform the world of my discovery. Fortunately, I couldn't talk about it, as something had died upon that realization. It took several weeks before I even wrote about it. I thought that I was enlightened, and ironically, it was this simple thought that made me ignorant of the actual realization. I now know for a fact that we are all enlightened and that there is no such thing as enlightenment in the sense of the word as it usually refers to particulars. This particular person, this particular experience, etc., etc. The ignorance that still remained was the fact that I thought that Mark was enlightened and that this was something special or exotic. So when the bliss from that experience naturally waned over the year, I thought that I had lost my sense of enlightenment, because my idea of enlightenment was based on and therefore reliant upon this exotic and special state of being. I spent the last year deepening my understanding of the final and ultimate truth. But this whole time, I was still making the simplest error. That tiny mistake resulted in a huge gulf between what I understood to be true and what actually is the truth. The ultimate truth is what I wrote before, which is that all there is awareness. And the part of that truth, in the path of truth, is simply deepening that understanding. I have had this understanding for about a year now, but I was still always working towards deepening my experience of it. The reason I was still working on deepening my understanding was the result of that one slight error. No matter how small it was, it spelled the difference between my understanding and that of realized mystics such as Ramana Maharshi. The realized mystics recognize that I am that, or I am this. I thought that I already knew this to be true, but I also thought that I didn't realize it fully yet because I didn't think that I was like them. I thought that something wonderful would happen and I would actually change to something else as a result of that final realization. That is why I had been obsessing over death for the last year. I thought that I was about to die and something else was going to be born in my place. And this scared the living shit out of me, as I did not want to die yet. I was waiting for a when. I had been anticipating something else. I am not sure exactly of what I was expecting, but you could be sure that it was centered around a death or something else exotic like fireworks, mystical explosions, ecstatic union with the infinite, or something else like the mystical experiences that I had in my past. I had been contemplating the understanding that all there is awareness for over a year before I could truly penetrate the ultimate truth that all there is awareness. I felt that I had to solve the paradox of just how the one, being awareness, could manifest itself as the many, the world. It was right after I finally solved the paradox for myself that I wrote a huge flurry of posts to a group on the internet because I thought that I was about to die, not physically, and I had to get it all out. It's ironic because I got everything out of my system except for that very one truth of how, specifically, the one manifests itself as the many. Even last night, I thought to myself, all I have to do is write down that one last thing and I'll be free. I was planning to write this today, but before I could even get it out, this morning at 7 a.m., I fully recognized that I am that. The following is the best I could do using words. Although I will have to rely on words, I am hoping I could express it in a way that will point you to the realization that you are already enlightened, whether you recognize it or not. So, I had just gotten home from work and sat on my back deck when my daughter came out and sat in my lap. I looked at her while she was talking to me, and I started to contemplate how she is also me. She is the same divinity that I am. I already understood that there is only one subject having all these experiences, and that I am that subject. But in retrospect, I did not believe this, as I was still waiting for the final blow so I would really know it, like the sages that I held in higher esteem than myself. But this time, when I pulled on the lion's tail, the whole lion showed itself. I had looked at people countless times and had been mystified that they were actually me. I thought I knew this to be true, but this time I saw that I was literally and actually behind her eyes right now. What I didn't write, but as I'm reading it, what I should have wrote was I was thrust spontaneously and immediately thrust into her perspective. I was thrust from my perspective into my daughter's perspective. So I went from me looking at my daughter to my daughter looking out at the yard. So I was literally and actually behind her eyes right now. Not figuratively, not poetically, not understood to be true, but literally and actually seeing that behind her eyes was me. I saw that I am my daughter right now. I could actually feel me behind the appearance of Sabrina, my daughter. The experience behind that phenomena that I call Sabrina is happening to me. My wife's experience happens to me. I saw that I am the only one that exists. Everything happens to me. Not some divinity that I will realize one day in the future, but this very presence that I have taken to be Mark is literally and actually that I am. And there's the picture that I put from that perspective. Oh, actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me continue the story and get to that perspective, because at this point in the experience, I'm just looking from my daughter's eyes and seeing what she's seeing as me. I should continue to read this. All right. So I immediately got an image of looking at a diamond, or something that looked like a diamond, how a diamond has, tons of facets. I immediately got an image of looking at a diamond and seeing through all of its many facets at the same time. Mark was one facet, Sabrina was another, my wife another, so on and so on. But behind all this phenomena is only I. It is all happening simultaneously to the same subject, which is I. I am the diamond. And then now I can get to the picture of what I saw. This is the perspective of what I saw. So I went from the perspective of seeing from my daughter's eyes, from one of those little perspectives, one of those views, one of those squares, to all of them at the same time, thrust backwards, pulled backwards, to the point that I could see that I was the I, seeing all through all eyes. I was the I, seeing through all eyes. You are the I, right now, seeing through all the eyes. Most likely only seeing one at a time, though, right now. But you are the I, seeing behind all those eyes. Just right now you're aware of one of them. And right now I'm only aware of one of them. The feeling that I got when I recognized that I am that was one of intense and existential loneliness. I truly am the only one that exists. But this feeling quickly turned to profound joy when I looked at my daughter and realized that she did not know that I, Mark, was actually her. I was not privy to the thoughts and feelings behind her appearance, and so I could play with myself as two. I was not lonely anymore because I had myself as the infinite expression of the phenomena. Not only am I behind everybody that appears, but I am also behind everything that arises in what I am, the infinite. It is ironic that apparent separation is the cure for loneliness as the one. I later thought of an image of a gingerbread neighborhood, with me being the gingerbread itself. I saw the gingerbread as a representation of awareness, and I am all of the gingerbread at the same time, whether I'm formed as gingerbread people, gingerbread house, gingerbread car, gingerbread trees. It is the ultimate game of hide and seek, as the seeker can never find the sought after, as the sought after is everywhere, and therefore nowhere in particular. Because the seeker looks in specific places, no matter how great, he shall never find the sought after, as its everywhereness eludes him at every turn. I cannot emphasize enough to you, the reader, that who you are right now is all there is. You truly are the only subject. all experiences are happening to the same subject, which is you, figuratively and literally. That who you really are is the infinite. And that brings me back to my tiny but fatal error. Referring to who I really am is what created that 1 degree of separation. From that perspective, one is led to say things like, right now, what I am is an idiot who thinks he is Mark, but what I really am is undifferentiated awareness. That was my error. Right now, I am actually and literally that undifferentiated awareness. I am all. I won't someday realize it, but right now, my being, my presence, my awareness is that I am. I am literally and actually right now behind every I. I am the only I. This is still pretty overwhelming to write, but I do not feel lonely anymore. In retrospect, this has been approaching for a while now. When you hear expressions in Zen, etc., such as it is like riding on the mule, looking for the mule, or the beggar unknowingly sitting on a bag of gold, they are misleading you because the truth is not that you're sitting on the gold or riding the mule, but that you actually are the gold or the mule itself, looking for you. You're you looking for you. I am literally and actually that which I was seeking. The sentience, which is I, is the only I. It is the I behind all eyes. Tonight when I came into work, I nearly broke down in tears when the patient walked into the sleep lab and I knew that I was him. To know that his experience was happening to me. I could feel me behind him, and it freaked me out as he was the first person I came into contact with since my realization this morning. All I want to do now is make people happy, as I know that they are me. I am literally and actually the only one that experiences everything. How could I not love everyone with all my heart when I know that I am behind their appearance? I keep getting images of everything just smearing into everything else, like all of manifestation is fused together and flattened out as one continuous stream of phenomena. I actually got all of this before, but I always added that 1 degree of separation. But now I know that this is it. There is nothing to wake up to, as you are already enlightened. You are already that I am. There is nothing else to wake up to, as you are already it, right here and right now. This is it. Okay, that is all I can say about that right now. And I didn't even get to the part where I discovered exactly how it is that the one is able to manifest as the many. To restate it, I was always obsessed about how there is something rather than nothing. I was always interested in how there is something rather than nothing. I wasn't interested in creation, not the idea of creation. I was just interested in the idea of how there is something rather than nothing. Not creation. Creation is for dualists, not first cause. First cause is for dualists, not the Big Bang. The Big Bang is just a modern day version of the world being propped up by turtles that are also propped up by turtles, and so on all the way down. And what I mean to say is that the Big Bang only avoids the question, well, what banged in the first place? And how did that come to be? It ignores the question of how is there something rather than nothing. And it seems to me that by default, there should be nothing. So, for me, the question is not what created us, but how does the one appear as many? As that speaks to the timeless nature of the universe. No beginning and no end, no plan, no purpose. All these things can only be considered in duality. This is where I came up with the image of a folded mirror. This is one of the many images or symbols that came to me as I contemplated the one appearing as many. The mirror representing the one and only would have to reflect and be aware of itself, as the mirror is all there is. But there would have to be a differentiation, or at least the appearance of one, so that the mirror would have something to reflect. And this one thing is the fold, or the crease, from the bending of the mirror itself. Imagine an infinite mirror that is perfectly reflective. Imagine that it is awareness itself, but it has nothing to be aware of because it is all there is. There's nothing else to be aware of. But if it were to simply fold or invaginate, then it would face itself as a result of this indentation. Now you have awareness of awareness, the duet of one. This is exactly the truth that I came to some weeks ago. This is how the one appears as many. All there is awareness. So what is infinite awareness. As the nature of infinite awareness is to be aware, it is aware of all. Because the nature of infinite awareness is to be infinite, total, and complete, it can only be aware of itself as it is all there is. The result is awareness of awareness, the duet of one, the appearance of two. It is the of that makes duality, or the appearance of duality. It is the of awareness that creates the appearance of duality, where there truly is none. There's only awareness. Awareness of awareness implies a subject/object dichotomy, where there is none. It is clearly evident that the subject actually is the object. Remove the of, I am that. Atman is Brahman. The dreamer is the dreamed. So on and so forth. There is nothing other than awareness. The fold is what makes awareness aware of itself. But nevertheless, there's still only awareness. But you know what? Who cares? All of this is removing the reader from the fact that he or she is already that I am. What you are right now is the one and only I. Your I is my I. I don't think that there's anything else to say. Take what I say for what it's worth, for these words appear in you. If my 360-degree experience was a slight shift in perspective, then this experience was a complete shift in perspective. With a 360-degree experience, I found my perspective backing up just enough to notice the screen that the world appears in, or appears on, directly in front of me. But in this present experience, I found my perspective backed up all the way to to reveal that I was the one pure, undifferentiated awareness looking out from all eyes simultaneously. I saw for myself that every single experience that can ever happen in any world, in any astral plane, in any heaven for that matter, is always happening to the same one, the same I. The key difference between the two visions, however, was not the specifics, but rather the sense of remembrance and finality that came only with this latest vision. The sense of familiarity and finality comes from recognizing the root bottom of your true nature as if you are returning to your ultimate home. Enlightenment is not something new, as I had always been led to believe. It is something that's always been there, just under the surface of our incessantly chattering minds. What drives the spiritual pursuit in the first place is the need to experience and understand our true nature, who we really are, and our ultimate place in reality. When I experienced the 360-degree vision, I still felt like I was an individual who just had a profound experience, or who just had a transcendental experience, revealing our true design as individuals. But in terms of a final enlightenment, I was still waiting for something else. As much as I longed to feel complete, I was still experiencing a strong sense of seeking something else. It was only after the experience of enlightenment, seeing my true nature as the ground of all being, that all seeking spontaneously and instantly dropped. I had spent my entire adult life being a voracious reader and a hungry practitioner of meditation and contemplation, but it all ended at that moment. I have had zero desire to meditate or to read since that day. I do still enjoy deep contemplation, as I find myself regularly being in complete awe of reality and everything that it has to offer, but reality is no longer something for me to solve. This is it. The ultimate reality that we have all been promised has been right here all along. The ultimate truth is that you, the reader of these words right now, are the only one that exists. Everyone that you have ever met and will ever meet in existence is actually you looking out through different eyes. I want to be very clear that I'm not speaking metaphorically. This is an actual fact that can be self-verified by anyone that cares enough to investigate this for themselves. There is already a rich and vast history of individuals from varying times and cultures who have discovered the same truth. I was surprised when I realized how many people deeply resonated with my description of enlightenment. The only criticism that I ever received was for sounding like a solipsist. I don't think that I was even familiar with the term solipsism until after this experience. When I wrote about my 360-degree experience describing how I saw that I was nothing, experiencing a screen of continually changing appearances, I was considered by some to be a nihilist or a world denier. After sharing this most recent experience, I was considered by some to be a solipsist or a megalomaniac. So overnight, I went from being considered a nihilist, someone who thinks that they are nothing, to a solipsist, someone who thinks that they are the only thing. And I truly do understand these criticisms. You can't expect to go running around ranting and raving about the world being an illusion and not be called a nihilist or a world denier. Likewise, You can't go running around screaming that you are the space for everything in existence and not be called a megalomaniac or a solipsist. But there's actually a tremendous difference between me and the nihilist as well as the solipsist. For example, when I say that the world is an illusion, I am not saying that the world doesn't exist, but instead that the world is actually awareness or God. I never denied the fact that the world appears. My point was that what we consider to be a fixed or solid world is actually awareness or God manifesting as form, as the world, manifesting as time and space. So going back to my analogy of the rainbow, I am not denying the appearance of the rainbow. I am only saying that the rainbow is not a fixed and solid actual thing, but instead that the rainbow is actually ungraspable light. So when I point out the fact that the world is actually an illusion, it is not meant to denigrate the world, but instead to glorify the world by recognizing its true and profound nature. The difference between myself and the solipsist is that in my experience, I had to see that I was nothing before I could see that I was everything. In fact, in my experience, it was the very surrendering of the idea that I was something that led to the perspective that I was actually everything. I understand that this still sounds awfully close to say that God is you. After all, it is only in your absence that God appears. Recently, I said that wrong. Let me back up. I understand that this still sounds awfully close to saying that you are God, but it would actually be only correct to say that God is you. After all, it is only in your absence that God appears. Recently, I read about what neuroscientists call mirror neurons, and I got the idea that this may be a biological explanation for the experience that we call enlightenment. Mirror neurons are thought to be responsible for our experience for empathy. It is the activation of these mirror neurons that may be responsible for us getting squeamish when we see someone else experiencing something that we would consider unpleasant. The activation of these mirror neurons make you feel like you are experiencing whatever it is that you are paying attention to. Reading about these mirror neurons immediately reminded me of the experience of enlightenment, beginning with my seeing from behind my daughter's eyes. It also reminded me of why I kept emphasizing how literal I was being when I said that I was actually experiencing what it was like to be my daughter. I think that it's possible that in that moment, the mirror neurons in my brain were activated to such an extent that I felt like I was my daughter, as she is what I was looking at just prior to this experience. It felt like the boundaries simply dropped away, leaving only my daughter. Taking my idea of the mirror neurons into consideration, you can say that what happened next was just an expansion of the boundaries, dissolving to the point that I was not just my daughter, but everything in existence at the same time. This part of the experience was literally like I was looking through an infinite diamond where each facet of the diamond was a different life, a different scene, depending upon the particular perspective. It looked like an endless succession of infinite movie screens, and I was the impersonal awareness that was the witness to all of those scenes simultaneously. So I saw that I was the one watcher of all the movie screens happening at the same time, like on a beehive. In the final part of the experience, my perspective returned to the point that I was no longer seeing through my daughter's or anyone else's eyes. At this point, I was seeing my backyard, but I didn't see the backyard as being outside of myself. From my new perspective, I was the yard. I was the sky. I was the earth. Everything that I saw, I was. There was absolutely no sense of separation between the world and myself. If my idea is correct, then as I was looking out into the yard, my mirror neurons were activated to such an extent that in my experience, I was the yard. It was actually that image that stuck with me the most after the entire experience. For several months, I kept seeing the world that I was looking at as my body. I would be overcome with this strangely familiar sense that the ground was my torso, the houses were my arms, and the mountains were my feet. And I had a really hard time commissioning an artist to do this, a rendering of what I was trying to capture. And what I was trying to capture is looking out into the world. So right now, as you're looking out into the world, you're looking at my book or you're looking at your computer, whatever you're looking at, my experience was that was my body. When I'm looking out and I'm seeing, like I said, right now you're looking at a book or you're looking at a computer screen, that book or computer screen was my body. I'm looking at that, and that's what my body is. My body is the world that I'm looking at. That's what I was trying to convey when I had an artist rendering that the whole world feels like my body, and I'm looking down at my body, and what my body looks like is cars, houses, right now, books and computers. But that's your body. This is your body. The world is your body. That's what I saw. I didn't have much time to recover from this experience because it would be only 1 week later that I would experience my final vision. That's that. All right. So that's chapter 5. Next week, I'll have chapter 6 ready for you. Chapter 6 is titled The Final Vision. So excited, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.